Hi, I'm Julia M. Spencer here, real estate advisor, investor, and your number one guru for real estate advice online. And I am back home from my vacation and I'm doing some social networking, answering some of your questions. And I wanted to get into one very specific question. And actually, it goes along with something that I had to do this weekend. We had kind of a busy weekend with my vacation rentals. And this isn't a typical weekend because usually everything's kind of pretty much smooth. But this weekend we had a plumbing issue as well as an air conditioning issue. And I thought it would be useful for the future investor or future person that is looking to have vacation rentals or even be a landlord period to know what kinds of issues could happen. Now for a new investor, a newbie, a rookie basically, this would have been a really panicky weekend. But for me, since I already understand all these things, it was kind of like a little bit busier than usual, but nothing out of the ordinary. Specifically, I had an air conditioning issue. The air conditioning issue took me 2 hours to fix, and that kind of scared off one of my guests who then decided he was going to go to a hotel instead, which is very unusual. Usually people are a little bit more patient than that. I also had a plumbing issue, and that person was very patient. In fact, they just kind of left the house while I was looking at it, and I fixed it myself within a few minutes. But I wanted to talk in this video a little bit about some of the systems that you will have to be responsible for or know that you have to be responsible for, and kind of line up your contractors or your experts for if you're a landlord or a vacation rental host. So of course, like I said, you're going to have a plumber that is going to take care of any kind of leakage, your toilets, your bathtubs, your sinks, your faucets, anything that's leaking, and anything that has to do pretty much with water. You also have to have an air conditioning expert, especially if you live in the South. If you live in the South, in the summer, it's going to be brutal outside. It's 100 degrees outside, humidity is 100%. It's going to be painful to be outside. People are going to rush inside. They want that air conditioning on. They want it set to 72 or below, and you're going to want that system working or the systems working in every place that you have. Ideally, you have somebody on the hook that can come right away. If you don't have somebody like that, then you're going to have complaints and you have people that give you problems. If you have long-term tenants, they're a little bit more patient, but if you have guests that rely to walk in the room and they want the place already cold or cold within half an hour or an hour and it's not working, then it's going to be very stressful for you. So you need to line up all those people beforehand. Another thing that can go wrong is basic general maintenance type issues. Now, if you live in a colder environment, you're going to have somebody that knows the air conditioning system as well as the heating system. Now, in the north, some houses don't have air conditioning. You don't need it, so it's not that big of a deal. But here's some of the things that if you have somebody that knows how to service a furnace, how to check to see if a furnace is burning correctly, that would be ideal in the north. If you live somewhere in the north in the colder climates. You also need to know, as a real estate investor, as a landlord, or even if you just own your house yourself, whether your system is gas powered or if it's electricity powered. If you have a system that runs on gas, it might actually still work even if the power is out, which is advantageous. And I'm going to tell you the reason why. Most houses in the United States have water heaters. There are these huge tanks that are somewhere either up in the attic or in a little side closet or maybe in the basement, but they basically circulate water through there, and they might be 60 or 80 gallons or whatever, and they basically keep those gallons of water hot all the time. This is when you go on vacation, you kind of want to turn it off, or else it's actually going to suck your power out while you're gone because the water keeps getting heated all the time. So you have hot water out of the faucets all the time. But if you're on vacation or someplace else, you obviously don't need that. So you want to have somebody that can service the plumbing, the toilets, the bathtubs, the sinks, the washer, basically somebody that knows how to service a washer and dryer, appliance people, somebody that can check your dryer vent, which is important. If it gets clogged, your clothes won't get dry. Somebody that can service your air conditioning system, very important, or your heating system. You also need somebody that can service the water heater. But another really important thing that you need to have is, and this actually applies to the north part, the colder parts of the country, as well as the hotter parts of the country. A lot of people have fireplaces. Fireplaces, of course, in the south more decorative. In the north, they're wood burning and they're actually generating heat throughout the house. But either one can be found in either climate, in either area. But if you have a wood burning fireplace, you're going to need somebody that at least services that fireplace once a year. And that's somebody that can actually go up the flute or put some sort of brush down there and try to check it out, make sure there's no obstructions. And believe it or not, there's actually animals that climb in there and kind of get stuck in there and sometimes die in there and smell horribly in there. And you're going to want to have that cleaned and checked out. But also, a lot of the older houses are built to older codes, so they're not really 100% fire safe to today's standards. So you're going to want to check to see. A lot of times when a house is built like in the 50s, the codes kind of go retroactively, so it's okay to have a house with a fireplace that's built according to standards of the 50s or so, but you're just going to have to make sure that you take the precautions to make sure that your place is safe. For example, I have a house that was built in the 1950s, and the area around the fireplace that's supposed to be stone, that's not burnable, is very, very small. The rest of the floor around it is wood, hardwood, which is very flammable, especially when it's covered with some sort of chemical to make it shiny. So a polyurethane, a gloss or something, which is very much flammable. So you want to make sure that you don't make like this huge fire, or you put some sort of screen in front of it. Those kinds of things you need to think of just for the safety of your tenants, your guests, or even yourself if you live at the house. So those are the kinds of experts that you have to have in line all the time, unless you know how to do the work yourself. Either way, though, it would be good to always pull in an expert when you're starting off so you understand what you're getting into. You also need to kind of understand what kinds of prices these people charge to service those systems in those areas for you in your house, and how often you have to do the service. Of course, air conditioning, fireplaces, probably once a year. For washer and dryer, I don't buy the service anymore because usually when somebody comes out, they don't charge very much, so it's not necessary to have somebody a yearly service. They also have the warranty plans for all of these things. But when you talk about air conditioning, and an air conditioning is a very expensive thing, and an air conditioning breaking is going to cost you a lot of money. So if you don't know anything about air conditioning, you think your air conditioning may be going out soon, you're going to have to think ahead of time, before that happens, to take the right steps. Either take a homeowner's warranty out on that system, or have that system pre-examined before it breaks to see if there's anything that you think might be breaking in the future, and kind of account and budget for that in the future, or else you're going to have to figure out some way to replace the system. The water heater is kind of a big expense. It's not that big of an expense, but you can get a pretty good water heater for maybe $500 to $700. You're going to have to, of course, pay for that to get installed, which is going to take another $200. So it's affordable. It's not something you want to just pay. There's also other options for water heating. There's these single area units. They just heat as much water as you need right that moment. The problem with those is they use an extraordinary amount of electricity, so they may not be feasible for your tenants, for your guests, or for yourself. So when you have to lay out your plan of how you're going to organize yourself. My advice to you is always to have a plan ahead of something when something happens. As I said, this weekend we had a plumbing issue. I was able to fix that myself. We had an air conditioning issue. Unfortunately, that cost me $200 because the system was low on Freon, and I should have thought of that and budgeted for that, but I didn't. Now somebody had to come out at the last minute and refill the Freon. so the system was working good again. But in all, it was a good weekend, and I was able to, make all my guests happy and my tenants happy, and we were able to generate a lot of cash this weekend. So for more tips like this, don't forget to go to my website. It's www.juliamspencer.com. You can also submit your questions, comments, remarks, anything else that you need at realestate@juliamspencer.com. Sign up for your free newsletter and download your free guide to real estate investing. I hope to see you investing soon. Thank you.
For your free guide to real estate investing, visit juliamspencer.com.